Greetings, all of my lovely and glorious students. Here is yet another concept that we are going to talk about. This concept is called crossing the street, aka solving multi-step equations. These are the kinds of equations where you've got variables everywhere, you got stuff going on all over the place, and we're going to turn it into a three-step process, just like everything else I tried to do. So let's jump into this particular lesson, but make sure you've written down your title at the top of your paper, okay? And we are going to make this concept as easy as 1, 2, 3. The first thing you need to know about this concept is when you can use it, okay? This concept can be used, well, almost any time, really. But what we're going to use it with today is if we have one variable and it's on both sides of the equation. So say your variable's x, you've got an x on the left side of the equal sign and an x on the right side of the equal sign. And so that is when you would use this. So for example, if I gave you an equation, and no, we're not going to solve this one, okay? If I gave you the type of equation we would be looking at for this, it would look kind of like this. I'll put my little x for my example. If we had like 2x plus 5 equals 3x minus 2. That is the type of equation that we're approaching today. And we're also going to look at some equations that are a bit bigger than this. This is kind of the smallest one. And so again, when can we use this? When we've got one variable and it's on both sides of the equation. So here's our steps. Remember, you always want to write down the steps, all right? Because that way, if you get stuck later, you can go back and you can look at them and say, hey, I got this far. Okay, what comes next? Like everything else, I try to limit it to 3 steps because after 3 steps, it just kind of gets muddled and we start losing our place. So when we're looking at our steps, our step 1 is to distribute if necessary. Now, the reason it says if necessary is because this step is not always going to be needed. If you do not have a set of parentheses anywhere in the actual equation, then you're going to skip step 1 and it's not going to be necessary, okay? And so step 1 sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't. But I go ahead and I put it here. That way you always remember to check for it. Do we need to distribute? If so, do so. If not, go ahead and jump to our step 2, which is to cross the street. I know it sounds a little weird, but that is what we are doing this time. We are going to cross the street. If you remember, too, that's the name of our lesson. So if you happen not to get that down when we were at the very beginning, you can get it down now. Go ahead on the title of this lesson, put cross the street, okay, in case you haven't already. Now, what cross the street means is that we're going to take an equation that has, a mix of things on both sides. We're going to take all our variable terms and we're going to put them on the left side, and we're going to take all of our constant terms and put those on the right side. You could do it the other way if you wanted to. I just kind of like to keep it to like the same process because it makes it easier for us when we're all doing this together. If you should want to switch that, it doesn't matter as long as you essentially put the same kind of terms on one side and the same kind of terms on the other side. It doesn't matter which side you put it on. So first, we distribute if necessary, and second, we cross the street. Our last step, because remember we're making it as easy as 1, 2, 3. Our third step is to divide by the coefficient. If we follow these steps correctly and we do what we're supposed to do, we should just have one term left on either side of the equation, and we can find out what our variable is by simply dividing, and that's it. And so it should be pretty quick for us, okay? The opposite to this, of course, would be if we have to do some multiplication, and we'll do that at a later date. Today, we're only going to talk about ones where the last step is dividing by the coefficient. Now, thinking back to a previous lesson, remember that a coefficient is the number in front of the variable, okay? So if I was going to do a little example of a coefficient off to the side over here, my example would look like this, okay? I have my little example. If I had 3x squared, okay, the 3, that right there, that's my coefficient, okay? Remember, the x is the variable. So here's our variable. The squared is the power. So the 3 is the coefficient. 3 coefficient, x variable, 2 the power or the exponent. Okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pause so you guys can get down anything else you might need and you can ask any quick questions. So I'm going to pause now. Okay, hopefully we've all gotten this down. We're ready to go. Remember that, I write the steps down first. We may not know exactly what they mean, but we will find out in a minute. And I will refer back to the steps on a regular basis, so make sure you write them somewhere where you can see them. We're going to do 6 examples on this particular lesson, okay? Hopefully we can get through them all. I think we can. So 6 examples. Here we go. Alright, so here's our first example, and this is one I'm going to do with you, okay? And then you'll notice there's a blank space on the right side of the screen over here that's not being used. That's not for me to just waste space. I'm going to put an example at the top of here that you guys are going to try in a minute, and then you guys can check to see if you get the same answer I do once you're done. So we're going to do this one together first, then you're going to get to try the one on the other side. So here we go. If we look at our steps, okay, remember you guys can look at your steps on your papers because you just barely wrote them down. I hope you did at least. If you look at your steps, the first step is to distribute if necessary. And one key word I gave you for that is you need to look for some parentheses. If we look at the equation we're looking at, 5p minus 14 equals 8p plus 4, there are no parentheses. Therefore, distributing is not necessary, so we are going to skip to step 2. Now in step 2, it says cross the street. And then it says your variables go on the left. And I'm going to go ahead and just label that here. I'm going to put a little V here for variable. And your variable terms go on the left, and your constant terms go on the right. That just means your numbers go on the right. And so I'm going to draw a little line right here. It doesn't have to be very long. And we are going to cross the street. So what that means is we are going to take anything that doesn't belong on that side and we're going to move it. When we move it and we cross the line right here, this is my street, it's going to change signs. So if it's a positive, it changes to a negative. It's a plus, it changes to a minus, and so on, okay? So this is my street. If I have to cross it, I change signs. Now on the left here, I have a V, and that means variable. So 5p is a variable term because you have a p there, so that can stay there. However, minus 14, that does not have a variable. We need to get rid of it, so that is going to cross the street. So we're going to take it, we're going to make it cross the street, we're going to put it under its like term, because that's something we learned just the other day, right? And so when it crosses the street, it changes signs, or it changes operations. So we're looking here, we had a minus 14. We crossed the street, we're changing it, so it's going to be plus 14. Okay? Now, if we look at this side of the equation, we have we need numbers, or we need our constant terms, okay? And so 8p, that has a variable, so that is a variable term. So we're going to have to cross the street to the other side. And so here's what we do. We take our 8p, we cross the street. Okay, 8p on this side, there's nothing in front, which means that it is positive. Okay, so when we cross the street, it becomes a negative or a minus 8p. Okay? And then we just combine our like terms. We cross the street, we're going to stick things together that go together. 5p plus 8p is negative 3p. And that's equal to, because we're still going to put our equal to sign in the same place. That is equal to 4 plus 14, which is 18. So we've done our first 2 steps. The first step was to distribute. There was nothing to distribute because we had no parentheses, and so we just moved forward. Our second step was to cross the street to get our like terms together, okay? So we wanted our variable terms on the left and our constant terms or our number terms on the right. And so we took our 8p and we moved it this way and made it minus 8p. We took our minus 14, moved it this way, made it plus 14, and then we just combined our like terms. 5p minus 8p is negative 3p, and then 4 plus 14 is 18. Now the third step is to divide by the coefficient of the variable. In this case, the coefficient of the variable is negative 3. And so we're going to divide both sides by negative 3. Okay? And so what you're going to do here is you have p left over on the left side, because negative 3 divided by negative 3, well, that's just 1. And we don't have to write that down again. Okay, so p equals, oops, let's make that equal sign look like an equal sign, equals, there we go, 18 divided by negative 3 is negative 6. And so we've just solved this problem. We made it in 3 steps, and so well, actually, we did it in 2 because the first step was unnecessary, okay? And so I'm going to put up the next question I would like you guys to do. When I pause this, I want you guys to ask me if you have any questions. So I'm going to put the next question up, the one you guys are trying on your own, okay? And the question is 8x minus 2 is equal to 7x minus 9. And I'm going to pause. Don't forget to ask me questions if you have them, either about the one on the left or the one you're doing right now. Don't sit and do nothing. That's not okay. Okay, so ask questions if you need to. I'm going to pause in 3, 2, 1. Negative 4,032. Now. Okay, so let's check this out. I'm going to go fairly quickly because this one, since you guys should have done it independently, hopefully you got some help when you needed it by raising your hand. And so I'm going to move very quickly just to make sure if there's anybody that I missed that you guys can get what you need. So step 1, I don't need to worry about. There's no set of parentheses. For step 2, I'm going to cross the street. So I'm going to put my little line right here. I want my variables on the left and my constants on the right. So I'm going to take the variable that's on the left, I'm going to move it over, have it cross the street. 7x becomes negative 7x. And then I'm going to have my constant right here, my negative 2, it's going to cross the street, it's going to become plus 2. And then I combine my like terms. 8x minus 7x happens to just be x equals, and then I have negative 9 plus 2 is negative 7. I didn't even have to worry about step 3 because there is no coefficient. Okay, so hopefully you all got that correct. I hope I'm hearing lots of cheering in the room. Okay, that's probably not coming across well over the microphone. You know how people act like the crowd is going wild. That's what I just tried to do and failed miserably. So we're just going to pretend that didn't happen, and I'm going to move forward to the next question, okay? We're going to take a look at this next question. It's right here. It has negative 18 minus 6k is equal to 6 times 1 plus 3k, and the 1 plus 3k is in parentheses. Since that is in parentheses, we are going to have to pay attention to our order of operations this time, and we're going to have to do step 1. Remember, step 1 was distribute if necessary. Well, guess what? On this one, it is necessary. So the way we distribute is we look at what's outside the parentheses. The 6 is outside the parentheses. In order to properly use the distributive property, we're going to take the 6 and we're going to multiply everything inside the parentheses by 6. So it looks kind of like this. You're going to do 6 times 1, which is 6, and then 6 times positive 3k, which happens to be positive 18k. Remember that the sign in front always goes with the number behind, so that 3 happens to be positive. Now, the right side is the only side that had a number outside a set of parentheses. And so the left side, we're just going to write it down exactly as it is. So we just write down our negative 18 minus 6k. So we just handled our first step. That's called the distributive property. If we have to distribute, you're going to multiply. You multiply the outside by everything on the inside, and then you're done. It's not too bad. All right, now our second step is to cross the street. Now remember, we want all of our variable terms on the left and all of our constant terms on the right. So if we look over here on the left, we've got a negative 18. That's a constant term. It doesn't belong there. Negative 6k does, but negative 18 does not. So we're going to take this and we're going to cross the street. When we cross the street, it becomes positive 18. Okay? Now, when we look at the other side, we have a positive 6, and that's fine. That is a constant term. But then we have plus 18k. That's not okay. That's a variable term. We want it on the other side. So we're going to take it, and we're going to cross the street. When we cross the street, it started out as a positive over here because we got a plus 18. So we're going to turn it into minus 18k over here. Now, this looks a little messy, so I'm going to kind of show you where I'm going with this. This 18 right here, that moved over, so that's no longer there, right? So I'm going to go ahead and cross it out, and that way we know it's gone. And then this 18k over here, well, that moved over here, right? So that's no longer there. And so I'm going to cross that out too to make my life easier. Okay, so now I just combine the things that are there. Right here we have negative 6k minus 18k. We're already in the hole. We're going deeper into the hole. And so we end up with negative 24. Oops. Goodness gracious, that's horrible. 24k equals, and then we have 6 plus 18 because they're both positive there. So 6 plus 18 is positive 24. Okay, so step 1, distribute. We did that. Step 2, cross the street. We did that. Now step 3, divide by the coefficient of the variable. In this case, the coefficient happens to be negative 24. That is what is in front of our variable k, so that is what we are going to divide by. So we divide by negative 24 on both sides. Okay? Now, on the left side, negative 24 divided by negative 24 happens to be 1. So you're left with just k. And then on the right side, you have 24 divided by negative 24. That is equal to negative 1. So our answer for this equation is k equals negative 1. Now, just like before, I'm going to put an equation on the right side. I'm going to pause it. You guys are going to try it. I'm going to go through it quickly. And then we're just going to keep moving forward, okay? So your equation to try is 5n plus 34. That's an n, I swear. There we go. 5n plus 34 equals, then I have negative 2, 1 minus 7n. Okay, so there's yours to try. I'm going to pause it now. Right, so I'm going to quickly go through this with you guys. I think we can all do this pretty quickly. We can see that we do have to do step 1. We have to distribute way over here. Now, I didn't leave myself enough room to do it on top, so I'm going to write my little arrows on bottom, okay? So I have my distributive property here. I have my parentheses on the right side, so I'm going to have to take this negative 2 and multiply it by everything inside this parentheses. So negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. And then negative 2 times negative 7n should be plus 14n. So that's what you should have gotten on that side. On the left side, we didn't do anything, so you just write it down. 5n plus 34. Okay, so now, first step, distribute. We handled that. Second step, cross the street. So we look here. We want our variables on the left and our constants on the right. And so on the left over here, we've got 5n that has a variable, that's fine, plus 34, oh, no variable, it's got to cross the street. It crosses the street. It's positive to begin with. It's going to change to a negative or a minus. Remember I told you those are kind of basically the same things. So we have a negative 34 over here, or minus 34 pretty much means about the same thing, okay? Now we look at the other side. Oh, and I'll go ahead and cross it out. That might make it easier with our longer ones so we can see that it's gone, okay? Now I'm going to look over here on this side right here, and I have a negative 2. That's a constant term. It's just a number, so that's fine. Plus 14n. Okay, 14n, that has a variable. It's got to move. So we're going to take it. We're going to cross the street. We're going to look. It is a plus 14 to begin with, so it's positive. So we're going to have a minus 14n. On this side, we're going to cross that out because we moved it. Okay? Now let's take a look at what we have left by combining things. We've got 5n minus 14n, which becomes negative 9n. Okay, equals. We've got negative 2 minus 34. So we're starting in the hole. We go further into the hole. That's negative 36. So we've done our first step. Our first step is to do our distributive property. We did that. Our second step is to cross the street. Well, we did that also. Our third step now is to divide by the coefficient of the variable. Remember, the coefficient is the number in front. So our coefficient here is negative 9. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 9. Negative 9n divided by negative 9 is just n. That's exactly what we wanted. Equals negative 36 divided by negative 9 is positive 4. So your answer should have been n equals 4. Now, these videos can only be 30 minutes long, so I'm running kind of short on the video. So I think I'm going to have to do one, and then the other we may have to do in class, but that's okay. We'll get it done, okay? And so I'm going to press next. Make sure you have this down. This last one, hopefully you were able to do it as we were going. Okay, here we go. Here's our next one. Notice how there's 2 parentheses. So we're going to have to do the distributive property twice. So let's go ahead and get this baby started. Alright, so we've got 3 outside of this set of parentheses, so we're just going to distribute it. 3 times a, believe it or not, is 3a. Okay, very easy. You just kind of slap them together and make them hug. 3 times a positive 5 is 15. So 3a plus, oops, I'm moving things and not intending to. 3a plus 15 is equal to, and we're going to just distribute again because we've got another number outside of parentheses. Okay, so we've got 2 times negative 5a. Deal with the numbers first. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10, and then the a can just kind of have, just hang out and come along. And then we've got 2 times a positive 5, which means plus 10, because 2 times 5 is positive 10. Now we cross the street, so that means our 15 is going to go this way. Hopefully we're kind of getting used to this. So instead of adding 15, we're going to subtract 15 or have a negative 15. Remember, same thing. And then our negative 10a is going to go to this other side because it doesn't belong over there. So we have negative 10a. That's going to turn into positive 10a, okay, which is great. I love it. And then I'm going to cross out the ones I moved. I moved that 15. I moved that negative 10a. So on the left side, I have 3a plus 10a. That becomes 13a is equal to, I have 10 minus 15, or 10 plus a negative 15. Either way, it means the same thing. That gives me negative 5. So I did my first step. I did the distributive property. I did my second step. I crossed the street either direction. And then my third step is always to divide by the coefficient of the variable. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to divide by 13. Divide by 13. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So 13 divided by, I should say actually 13a divided by 13 is just a, equals, and then I have negative 5 over 13. That's just going to stay there. Negative 5 over 13. I don't need to worry about that big old decimal. It's not a big deal. I can just leave it like that. Okay, I'm going to write down the very last question. You guys are going to try it, and then I'm actually going to put the answer on here, but I'm not going to do the workout on here. We'll do the workout in class if we need to, okay? So the question itself is 3 and then p minus 1 in parentheses equals, and then negative 2, and then it's 8p minus 8 in parentheses. So running really short on time, I'm going to go pause now. Okay, so since I was running so short on time, what I actually decided to do is go ahead and just give you the solution to the problem here so you can check it with what you did. Okay, and so I have it on here. You guys can look at it. The final answer should be p is equal to 1. And that should give you the correct solution on both sides. We found out what our p is equal to. I hope I was able to make this as easy as 1, 2, 3 for you. We're going to do some more practice in class a little bit later. And so you guys have a wonderful day. It was so nice to teach you today. I'm going to turn it over back to myself in the classroom. And so as far as the virtual Mrs. Ronhell goes, bye!